All right, welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep today into something, well, pretty intense. The October 7th Massacre and, the really quick finger pointing that happened towards the Palestinian Authority.
Yeah, it's a claim you see a lot, and it's definitely making some serious waves.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to try and unpack it all, see why it's so important to, look past just the initial headlines and really get into it.
Absolutely. The thing is, with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, you're always dealing with, well, a ton of complexity. There's so much history there, so many different groups and
Right,
motivations.
it's not an easy thing to just sum up in a sentence or two. But, our source for today actually goes as far as saying, quote, "The one involved in the massacre on October 7th is the Palestinian Authority," end quote.
Wow. Okay, so that's a pretty strong statement. That's not mincing words at all.
No, not at all. It feels kind of like, I don't know, trying to untangle a giant knot. Where do you even begin?
Right. It's a lot. Well, I think one place to start is with the PA itself. What do they actually do? I mean, they govern parts of the West Bank, right?
Which is separate from the Gaza Strip, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not like a tiny group with no power or anything.
No, definitely not. And they've been involved in, lots of peace negotiations over the years, attempts to find common ground with Israel, even though they've definitely faced a lot of criticism along the way.
So they're a real presence in the region. They have, responsibilities and a history. Okay. But is it really fair to say that they're solely responsible for this massacre? I mean, the West Bank isn't exactly a small area, right?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's
Hmm.
where understanding the difference between the PA and Hamas becomes super important.
Right. Hamas. They control Gaza, right?
Exactly. And their approach, well, it's been much different. They've been very open about, using violence against Israel.
They've actually claimed responsibility for certain attacks, haven't they?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Rocket attacks, incursions, things like that. It's a completely different picture from what's being said about the PA.
So you're saying within the Palestinian territories,
Hmm.
you got these two very different approaches to the conflict with Israel, with Hamas being, I guess, much more on the militant side.
Yeah, exactly. But does that then mean the PA is completely off the hook? Not necessarily. But it does mean that just blaming them, the PA, for the massacre, it's way too simplistic. It ignores other possibilities.
Like what?
Well, like other factions within the West Bank. Smaller groups, maybe, with their own goals and their own ways of doing things. We can't just assume it's all the PA, top to bottom.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then there's the point our source made about, how this kind of oversimplification, this blaming the PA without looking deeper, can actually make things worse.
Oh, 100%. It just fuels anger and mistrust on all sides. It makes it, well, basically impossible to have any kind of real conversation or make any progress.
It shuts down any hope of cooperation.
Exactly. And let's be real. Finding a path to peace, any kind of lasting solution, it requires some level of cooperation. Even if it's fragile, it has to exist between different Palestinian groups and Israel.
Okay, so much to think about.
Yeah.
Let's take a step back for a second and recap. We've got this horrific event, the October 7th massacre, and, like we were saying, the immediate reaction is to point the finger at the Palestinian Authority.
Right. Blame first, ask questions later, which happens a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
But what we've been talking about is that it's just not that straightforward. There's way more to it.
Way more. We've got Hamas operating into totally different territory, openly claiming responsibility for violence. We've got the possibility of other groups within the West Bank being involved. And then we have the PA itself.
Which, like you said, isn't perfect. They have their own issues and divisions, but we can't just lump them all together.
Right, exactly. You can't paint them all with the same brush, so to speak. And this is important not just for understanding this event, but for thinking about the future too, right? Any hope for peace.
That's what you're saying, right? That understanding these nuances, the different groups, their motivations, it's all crucial.
It's essential because, if we can't even accurately say who was responsible for this massacre, then how can we even begin to address all the bigger problems, the stuff that's really driving the conflict? It's a pretty, a pretty sobering thought.
Yeah, no kidding. It's something for everyone to think about as they, learn about all this and process it.
Absolutely. And, maybe it's worth thinking about this too. Even if we can't definitively say who did what does it say about the situation that there are so many groups who could be involved? What does that tell us about how complex and how dangerous things are right now?
That's a really good point. That's something I'm definitely going to be thinking about. And hopefully our listeners will too.
I hope so. Because this isn't just about one event. It's about the bigger picture.
It's about trying to, move towards a future where these things don't happen anymore. Thanks for joining us today, everyone, and keep those questions coming.
Absolutely. Until next time.